All right, welcome back to the Atlanta Child Murders Revisited. It's 21 March, and this is video number 32. We're going to get back into it with the Hirsch Friedman files here. And just to remind you how this relates to the Atlanta child murders, okay? So, Hirsch Friedman was a mob lawyer. He handled the stuff for the Gambinos. Okay, their strip clubs, their porn shops, their adult bookstores. Anytime someone got in trouble, they had a number to call. Hirsch Friedman, your get out of jail card. You call him, he'll come, to your hearing, appeal for your bail, set up your bail, get you out of jail. Okay, and then either he or someone else will defend you if you have to go to trial. That's what Friedman's job was. So how this relates to Wayne Williams is that's exactly what Garland did. Friedman and Garland were on the same meal ticket. They worked for the Gambinos. Although I would say Friedman was kind of independent of Garland, but worked with Garland. Okay. Um, so what happened is when Wayne Williams he gets pulled over that night after crossing the bridge and turning around and going, throwing the body and going down, turn around, coming back up. He gets pulled over by the FBI, questioned by the FBI. He wasn't nervous. The reason why he wasn't nervous because he figured he had, you know, crossed all his T's and dotted his I's, or as my dad used to say, dotted all his T's and crossed his I's. Okay, so he knew he had his shit together on that end. He was dumping the bodies into the river, washing off the carpet fibers in the dog hairs. So he knew he had his shit together there. No one had. They didn't. If they had seen him, they would have arrested him. They'd seen him throwing the body into the river. They would arrest him, and he knew it. So he was pretty confident. And when he got back, he called Garland, or he called someone who called Garland. Okay, and Garland set him up with a legal defense. Okay. And it wasn't Friedman, of course, but it was Mary Welcome, Friedman's competition. Okay. Because, see, by this time, Friedman had switched sides. He was now working for the FBI. Okay. So he was kind of on the outs with Garland. So they weren't going to trust him. Even though he was the Gambino get out of jail free card, he's the go to guy, in the number. Like when I've done my JFK videos, and the curious thing about Oswald is every time he came out to the press, he kept asking for a lawyer. Okay, said they weren't allowing to talk to a lawyer or anything like that. He did contact Mrs. Payne, okay, and had her try to contact this Mr. Altman, this liberal ACLU lawyer up in New York, but he was away. It was Friday, and he was away on vacation at a cabin, so out of touch with the phone. Okay, and he was actually someone actually went up there and contacted him in the Allegheny Mountains to let him know that Oswald was trying to get a hold of him. Okay, and so when he wasn't able to get a hold of him, okay, he knew he was a calm customer. He knew that someone would get him a lawyer and help him. And that's exactly what happened. When he got arrested, a guy named um, I darn it, now I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, a guy called a lawyer named Dean Andrews, Dino, just like me, in New Orleans. You see him in the JFK movie, played by John Candy. Look at the bimbo. Ooh, check out the bimbo in red. And he's like the cool dude. Mr. Beatnik, lawyer, and he had done work for Oswald, trying to get Oswald's um, discharge, which had been changed to dishonorable, changed back to honorable. And again, I go into the video on that. I'll go off a tangent real quick. Why would a communist who hates the United States, okay, defected to Russia, threatened to give away all his military secrets, and then got back to the United States, why would he give a damn what his military discharge was like? Well, some people say, well, it affected him getting a job. Well, you can just lie. You can just say, hey, I never served in the military. I had a bum ear or bum foot or bum back or bad eyesight or whatever. You can say, hey, yeah, I never served in the military. And that's another thing. Why would the fucking communist, okay, he said he, in his diary, supposed diary, became a communist when he was 13 years old? Well, why at 17, 4 years later, would you volunteer to go into the imperialistic Marine Corps of the United States military? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Anyway, so Oswald, okay, well, we'll go back to Dean Andrews. This guy named Clem Bertrand, who is Clay Shaw, called Dean Andrews and says, hey, we need to provide some kind of legal defense. Do you know any lawyers in Dallas that we can help Oswald out? Now, what that tells you basically is that Clay Bertrand was sheep dipping Oswald in New Orleans, along with this former FBI agent there. Okay. But Clay Bertrand was out of the loop on the assassination. He maybe was told that they were just they were using Oswald to pose as a communist, to infiltrate leftist groups, and then he would take down names. Okay? He was an FBI informant. Deep FBI informant. So deep that even the FBI in New Orleans didn't know he was working for them. Okay? And so Clay Shaw tried to help Oswald out by getting an attorney in Dallas. But there's a guy that does a really good video about Oswald's phone call. Okay? So Oswald makes a phone call one night to a number in North Carolina. Okay? The FBI, okay, so when you make a phone call from jail, you got to give the number to an operator. You go to a room. She dials the number. When they pick up, she signals you. You pick up the phone on the other side of the wall, and you talk. Okay? So the FBI was on the other side of the wall with her, and when he made the phone call, he gave her the number. She pretended like she made the call and said no one answers her. And then she gave the number to the FBI, and she wrote all this down. Okay, there actually were two numbers, and she wrote all this down because her daughter said, hey, if anything happens in the jail, write it down because it could be important historical later. And she wrote it down on like a calling card. They have these call cards they keep for records in their files. Okay, and she made a double copy. Years later, they were moving or something. She pulled out there were when you move, you go through your shit you have and say, okay, I can throw that out. Don't need to move that. Don't need to move. And they found this record and they go, hey, well maybe, they never did anything on this. This is like 10, 20 years later. And so she gave it to the sheriff. The sheriff gave it to the FBI. They never followed up on it. Well, there was a guy. Somebody did a newspaper article about it, and there was an investigator, a JFK assassination investigator, that read that article and went and got that information. And what they found out is that the number, okay, was to a former Army intelligence officer that was now retired, living in North Carolina. He actually had was disabled and was getting a disability from the VA. He had some mental problems too. Okay, and when they questioned him, the wife was very protective, and he said, I don't know who Oswald is. And my whole point of this is that basically there was a special forces guy, after he wrote up this article, that came to him and said, hey, I know what that is. And he said, what? Well, the special forces guys had worked for the CIA doing special ops and in other countries. Okay. And they go in clean, where it doesn't identify them with any, phone numbers, whatever, contacts, anything like that, fake passports, stuff like that. But they're given a number in whatever country they're in. Okay. And if they get in trouble, say they go to France and they get picked up by the French police for suspicious activity. Well, the French police don't know who they have. They don't know the guy's special forces. They just think their neighbors are saying these guys are suspicious. Okay. So, instead of calling the U.S. Embassy or calling some kind of military number or saying, hey, we're special forces guys, don't blow their cover, because there could be informants inside the police that could tell the people that they're surveilling. So they call a number, and the number, it could be a relay number. Okay. It could just be some old lady. Hey, this is Bob. She knows if she gets a call from Bob and he leaves a number or a message, she's supposed to call somebody else. And this may go on 2 or 3 times. Okay. Because the police may trace that number and go talk to the old lady and say, hey, what did you do with that message? What message? What are you talking about? I never got a call. Okay. So these are relays. They're cutouts. They're not trained intelligence officers, but they're people that will pass the information on to someone else. And I've seen this in these movies. They usually use the name code word mother. Okay. Mother, or that's the CIA uses the cover mother for the Home Office, and Angleton's code word was mother. Okay. And I believe that's where they got that from. And in Russian intelligence, they call it a residencia. Okay. Or the Home Office, whatever. And what my point is that Oswald was calling this guy to say, hey, I'm in trouble, in case no one knows, which how could you not know? And I need some assistance. So if he called and left a code word like, hey, tell Auntie Jen to water the cactus. Okay, what that means is I'm in trouble. I need some legal assistance. So this cutout would call another number, leave that message, and then someone would call and get him an attorney in Dallas. And that could be what happened, is that he called the cutout in North Carolina. That cutout called Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw called Dean Andrews. And Dean Andrews was supposed to call for a Dallas attorney. And this is pretty definite that this happened because a member of the ACLU, no, the Bar Association. Okay, remember I've been going over the Bar Association in Atlanta and how Friedman is a member of the bar and how Garland is a member of the bar and Mary Welcome is a member of the bar and how you can't practice law in any state unless you're a member of the bar in that state. Okay? Now, some bar licenses transfer across the country. Okay? Just depends on your reputation. So, I've gone down such a rabbit hole, I can't remember exactly where I'm at now. Oh, so the Bar Association, okay, they got a call. There were people watching the news, and lawyers started calling the Bar Association and says, hey, they talked to the head of the Bar Association and says, hey, this Oswald guy is complaining on the news that he doesn't have a lawyer and he's not getting representation. And the police are refusing to allow him to have a lawyer. He may have killed the president, but he still needs a lawyer, right? So the president of the Bar Association goes down to the jail, requests to speak to Oswald. He gets to go to Oswald's jail cell. He's talking to Oswald. Hey, do you need a lawyer? Oh, I'm good. Now, why would Oswald say that if he just spent the last 24 hours, every time he saw the media, complaining he wasn't allowed to talk to a lawyer? Okay? Because his cutout, okay, the first time he calls doesn't get through because they say the number didn't get through. The second time he calls, he gets through and leaves a message. Okay? And then Dean Andrews gets a call from Clay Shaw. So this is not a video about the JFK assassination, but the system is still the same. Okay? Wayne Williams, I'm sure when he got home, he went to a phone booth somewhere and called somebody, a contact, a cutout, that called Garland because Garland said, don't ever call me directly at my office. Call this guy. He will call so-and-so and then go to this phone booth on Stewart Lakewood, on the corner of Stewart Lakewood there, and I'll call you at 3 o'clock. Okay? Don't ever come to the office. Don't ever call me directly. That's how that shit works. Okay? And so Garland because Garland couldn't just show up. You know, again, why is a high-priced $500 an hour lawyer give a damn about a poor black child serial killer? It's not going to bring him more business. Okay? You look at his client list, all high-profile drug dealers, pornographers, murderers, people with lots of money, basketball players, councilmen, stuff like that. Not going to give a damn about a black serial killer, folks. It's not going to happen. But he gets Wayne Williams, Mary Welcome. Now, Mary Welcome, of course, right after she loses the trial, okay, is in competition now with Mr. Hirsch Friedman, who we're reading about right here. Okay? And Hirsch Friedman, unfortunately, came out and started talking about his credentials of working undercover with law enforcement, the FBI, the GBI, and the Atlanta police. And people started doing the numbers, okay, in their head. Fuck, how many times did I talk of Hirsch Friedman about so-and-so and such, and all this time he was wearing a fucking wire? Made a lot of fucking people angry. Okay? Especially Coppola, who's now under heat by the government, probably because of what the shit Friedman taped him saying. And the Gambinos now are faced with the choice of Mary Welcome, who's in our pocket, or Hirsch Friedman, who we know is working for the FBI now because he's been blabbing it all over the fucking place. So they already know this other guy lost the case, got his case lost by Friedman. He went to jail for a little bit, and he's already a little pissed off and a little angry. So they hire him to blow up Friedman. Okay? And that's what happens on August 17th, 1982. And this guy, okay, is in contact with Mary Welcome. They're buddies. They're talking. So isn't that a little suspicious, don't you think? That Mary Welcome's running against Friedman, and the guy who blows up Friedman is good buddies with Mary Welcome. I don't know about you folks, but I can put A and B together and get C. Call me conspiracy minded. I don't know. Yeah. David Neil Bennett. Okay? All right, where did I leave off? No emotion was shown by Bennett during the search except to complain to investigators that Mary Welcome was being harassed and that the investigators had no right to do that. He's good buddies with Mary Welcome, folks. I mean, do we have to put out a model again? Okay. You've got Wayne Williams, Mary Welcome, Ed Garland, Mr. Bennett, and the Gambinos. Okay? And then you got Hirsch Friedman, GBI, Atlanta Police, GBI, FBI. Really simple to figure out. On September 9th, 1982, a friend of Mr. Bennett's taped a phone conversation in which Mr. Friedman was discussed. In it, among other things, Mr. Bennett mentioned his phone call from Mary Welcome. Mentioned he would have had to find another part-time job and moved into a cheap hotel until he saved enough money, explained how a mercury switch worked, called Mr. Friedman a snitch, talked about Mr. Friedman and his condition, mentioned Mr. Friedman was hospitalized at Northside Hospital where Mr. Bennett had worked. If somebody paid money to have him killed, he's still alive. They're going to have to do it again to finish it up. That's the way it works. He's like a dead man where he's at now. The Fulton County Police Department was the originating police authority in this investigation because, Northside Hospital, that's Fulton County. It's Sandy Springs now. However, many agencies, including federal agencies, had members on the task force which investigated the bombing. At the conclusion of the investigation, the case was presented to District Attorney Lewis Slayton for prosecution. He declined. Mr. Fernandez was possibly the closest friend David Neil Bennett had originally given a statement incriminating Mr. Bennett. Fernandez later recanted most of his incriminating statements. He was thought to be a weak witness. Evidently, without him, the district attorney felt prosecution would not be successful. However, he was the prime suspect and more likely than not responsible for placing the bomb. So, did somebody get to Mr. Fernandez? They offer him money, offer him a bribe, offer him, look, we know where you live, we know you go to work. We sure would hate for your car to end up the same way as Mr. Friedman's when he came out and cranked it up, you know? Anyway, it says plaintiff's theory is that David Neil Bennett planted the bomb on behalf and the direction of Carl Coppola. They reason, you think, that someone reported to Coppola that Friedman was investigating the stress clinic, or they may have heard about Friedman was working undercover for the Atlanta police, the GBI, and the FBI while he was working for Coppola, which they assert belonged to Coppola. At this point, Coppola determined that Friedman, in fact, was out to get him and decided to make good on his 1980 threat. See, he'd already made a threat before. Plaintiff argues that if he had known of the 1980 threat, he would not have gone to the stress clinic. Actually, you should have kept your fucking mouth shut and not gone on the radio bragging about your undercover work. He also appears to have argued that once the FBI, through Special Agent McAvoy, found out he had gone to the stress clinic, they had an obligation to provide him and his family with physical protection for retaliation by Coppola. I would think so. There was no direct evidence. But see, like I said, folks, don't ever offer to work for the police or the FBI because they will hang your ass out to dry. They don't give a damn rat's ass about you. All they care about is their career and making their case. And protecting you, that's just, if they can protect you to get you to the trial to testify, they'll do that. If it doesn't matter if you're alive or dead to make their case, they won't protect you. Okay? It's kind of the law of FBI economics. All right. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good people in the FBI. I love the FBI. You just got some pretty selfish bad actors or people, people with bad agendas or people that, they're not thinking beyond their own fucking nose or their own career. The only evidence that the clinic was a Coppola front was provided by Detective Melton, which testimony consisted of his relating what the female source had said to him. Let me see what time we got here. So 30 minutes, about. Okay. And after I'm done with this, I got a whole bunch of new tabs. Incorporation tabs I found a hell of a lot of good information on. Nothing on Coppola, though. Anyway, let's see. He further testified, however, that she had been identified by name. The persons she had seen there were owners of nightclubs other than the she. Detective Melton was unable to find corroborating evidence that the stress clinic was a Coppola front. There was no evidence that the female source had said that Robert T., the stress clinic manager, was a Coppola associate. Likewise, there was no direct evidence that Carl Coppola caused David Neil Bennett to plant the bomb in Hirsch Friedman's car. That's just what they don't know. Okay? Plaintiffs sought to prove that Bennett acted on Coppola's behalf in planting the bomb by showing that Bennett was an employee of Coppola's and that Coppola had conspired to kill others with car bombs. In the United States versus Coppola criminal case 86185A, Coppola was convicted of charges of criminal racketeering. The government introduced evidence of Coppola's trial, seeking to prove that he had conspired to have one or more individuals killed with bombs. However, there is no evidence that before the court that convictions Conviction was based on the evidence concerning the alleged bomb plot. On numerous occasions in 1979 and 1980, David Neil Bennett had been seen in the company of Carl Coppola at Gillies, Coppola's restaurant. And hold 1 second, okay? I think I got something on Gillies here. See, you never know what you're going to find until you do some research. God damn. So there we are right there. Gillies, okay? Carl Coppola. You see that address right there? It's also there. It's also there. And look who we have here. A.J. Block, my friends. Who's A.J. Block, you say? Well, A.J. Block is none other than the incorporating attorney for Maurice Gayton, owner of the Limelight Club up in Buckhead. You know, right? Like, there's the Limelight, and then where the Trader Joe's is now, that's the Gold Club. So there you go. There's a link between Carl Coppola and the Gambinos, the mob, and A.J. Block and the mob. Okay? And who did A.J. Block incorporate also? Well, let's just see. Hold on 1 second. All right, so here we go, folks. Read them and weep. All right, here's the first one. Maurice Gayton. They created Delta Incorporated at 285 Peachtree Center, downtown. There is the attorney right there on record. At Colony Square, there's Maurice Gayton from Canada, okay? Remember his brother started the Limelight and then went back to New York, got busted for selling drugs in New York at the Limelight there, okay? And then we have A.J. Block right there, Delta Incorporated, whatever Delta is, okay? And here's the next one. Oh, hold on 1 second. It was Peter Gayton. Here's the next one right here. Nova Entertainment and Nova Records, 100 Peachtree Street. Okay? Cynthia and Maurice Gayton, 3060 Far Court. There's Hunter Thomas, 3330 Piedmont. That's the Limelight address right there. Okay? And then later that year, they did it again. Nova Records and Entertainment, 100 Peachtree Street. Cynthia and Maurice Gayton. Cynthia is an artist now up in Canada. That's the brother of Peter Gayton and sister of Peter Gayton. Okay? That's A.J. Block. A.J. Block is incorporating these. And he is also an associate of Gary Coppola, who is the enforcer for the Gambinos in Atlanta. Yeah, see, A.J. Block, attorney for Gayton, 2060 Mount Perrin Road. If you go to this address right here, you're literally a few blocks away from where Wayne Williams would have dropped a body off of 1941 bridge, and it was found in Vinings, washed up on the Cobb County side. He lived in a $1.5 million home at 3 Whitewater Trail. Really nice house. They also own Cajun Properties at Colony Square. You remember my mom's friend, Eugene Smith? He was on the 20th floor. Okay? A.J. Block had an office on the 19th floor, one floor down. They're fucking neighbors. Atlanta syndicates. He doesn't even disguise it. He just comes out in 1971, okay, with Atlanta syndicates. What do they call the mob? The syndicate, folks. This is the Atlanta branch of the syndicate, and this is their attorney setting it all up for them. (1971), La Chirine, Colony Square. 1978, 1979, Lansdowne Investments, literally within days of when the first two victims disappeared, he's incorporating Lansdowne Investments, okay, with Maurice Gayton and Cynthia Gayton. It's going to be a real estate investment corporation again for laundering money for drug deals in the mob. That's what that is, folks. They launder their money with real estate transactions. July 21, 1982, 1 month before Hirsch Friedman gets his legs blown off. Okay? He does an incorporation. I guess this is for his son, A.J. Block Jr. And then in December, they do Lansdowne of California. That address right there is the Limelight. That address right there is Colony Square. One floor down from his good buddy, Eugene Smith. They all fucking know each other, folks. They go to lunch. They go to lawyer luncheons with the Georgia Bar Association together. Okay? They go in conventions in Vegas, go drinking, go bang some hookers. And then they come home and they talk about, hey, look at all that we did in Vegas. Wow. There's another one, this time a real estate investment scam in Texas, incorporated at the Limelight Dance Club with Peter and Maurice Gayton. Now, you got to ask yourself, what the fuck would two French Canadians, Peter and Maurice Gayton are French Canadians from Montreal in Quebec, what the fuck would they want with a real estate investment scheme? Okay. Well, have you heard of the heroin trade? Remember that movie, The French Connection? How they were bringing in heroin from the poppy fields in Afghanistan through Turkey, Istanbul. Remember Midnight Express, that movie? And then The French Connection. The French and Marseille would bring that into Canada, and they would sneak it across the border, okay, because it's easier. You can walk across the fucking border from Canada, carrying heroin in the car. Remember that policeman in The French Connection tore that car apart trying to find the drugs. They never could find them, and they were there. Hold on one second. So again, let me just make it really clear. The mob invests in these dance clubs and restaurants not because they like dancing, not because they like food. Well, maybe they like food. As fronts for drug sales and prostitution, friends. That's what they're doing. And then once they get their money, they use that money and put it into real estate. Why do you think all the properties are so fucking expensive nowadays, okay? It's because the mob Russian mafia, the Italian mafia, the Chinese triads, they're investing in the U.S. in real estate because it's a good, safe bet. They put it in real estate, it sits for a year, and they'll start an LLC, and they'll, like, remember I showed you this properties on Maple? Well, one of those properties, it was sold like every year. No one ever lived there. No one ever had a business there, but the property kept being transferred every year. But I'm sure if we went around and looked at property transfers, you'd see that. But they can spread it out around the country, so it's very difficult to trace. That's why they're starting one in California and then one in Georgia, Lansdowne, and one in Texas. It's the syndicate. AJ Block's laughing at you. Okay? And then here is, we'll keep going, 1986 Beta Production on Flintstone Drive in Tucker. I don't know what that one's doing. There's another one, Lansdowne Incorporation. See Peter Gayton? I got to go up and update a lot of these. Here's Hunter Associates, 1989. Gayton Enterprises, 1992. What's he enterprising? 41. The name of this corporation was 41 14th Street. If you go to 41 14th Street, you know where that's at? That's up there where Jimmy Mays got blown up in his van, folks. Exactly 20 years later. Well, 19 years later. And here's another one. Boutique Seafood, 265 Far Road. Christo Macreades. It's a Greek name. Okay? It's right there off of Far Road. Far Road in Piedmont. Remember I told you that when Thieves got his fucking $1 billion, he couldn't launder it. He couldn't hide it enough. So he got all his relatives to move to Atlanta, and he gave them money to start a restaurant or a deli or a little Greek store. And all right in there, okay, even up to this day, are Greeks. And here we have these Greeks working with AJ Block starting a seafood restaurant. And again, AJ Block is just this attorney. Hey, you need to launder some money, okay? You go to this guy, AJ Block. He will set you up, incorporate your business, set you up in the Cayman Islands with an LLC, an incorporation, and you can launder all that. And see, here we go. There's another one. 3 years later, Pano Karistasos, another Greek. Isn't that funny? Same address, different business. 3060 Corporation. Isn't that crazy? It's not just coincidence, folks. I've done the research, and if I had an army of about 100 guys, and we went at it 40 hours a week, it'd still take us years. But I think I've done pretty damn good. Just, maybe an hour or two a day I work on this. Anyway, am I still recording? Yeah. I got about 15 minutes. Let's see. So I think I've done yeoman's work, okay? Considering 8:34. All right. Hartsfield Market right there is another one. I bet that was run by, you go in there, the guy is a Greek. I guarantee you. Or Italian. Here's another one. eSpace Online. 1996. Andrew Cross, Maurice Gayton. All right. What else they got? Park Lake Investments. 2964 Peachtree Road. R. Hunt Dunlap. John A. Block, that's his son. And now this is an address out of Surrey, BC. This is up near Vancouver in Canada. Okay? Another investment corporation. Why do they need so many fucking... Why does Peter Gayton or Maurice Gayton need 10 to 15 different land investment or investment corporations, folks? They're running a fucking nightclub, a disco. Are they making that much goddamn money in the disco? You bet they are. And see, they're fronting it. They're being told by the Gambinos, you're going to be fronting this corporation that we're going to use to launder our money. And if you don't, well, remember what happened to Hirsch Friedman? All right, let's go back. I want to go back to this part here. Here's another one. Bishopgate Investments. Okay. British Group, Georgia. There's Dunlap, R. Hunter Dunlap in Surrey. 1999, Limelight owner admits tax evasion. That was Peter Gayton. He went to jail and then he got deported back to Canada. Here's another one. Large C, 3365 Piedmont Road. That right there's Tower Place, folks. 3330 is Limelight. Across the street is Tower Place. So in 2012, and they keep going every couple of years, you know, maybe the DEA, maybe the FBI catches on to one corporation. Hell, fuck it. We'll just go start another corporation. That's what they do, folks. All right. Now, this is more of Michael Thieves. I'm still organizing all this shit. It's a lot of shit. All right, let's see. Is there any more? AJ Block. Cajun Properties. 1905 Colony Square. 1969. Okay, so we did that one already. Atlanta Syndicates. We did that one. Yeah, some of these I've doubled. All right, there you go, folks. So, see, I'm glad I looked this up because now, I think that name even sounds familiar. John Kofer. But yeah, there's the link right there. Carl Coppola and AJ Block. My God. So, let's look at two things. And then we're going to have to wrap it up. There's only a certain amount of time. All right, so we're going to look at Carl Coppola. See, it's kind of odd that he would let his name get put down there. Let's see here. Carl Coppola. Yeah, just Jilly's. Well, let's look at Jilly's also. Circle 75. Where the hell is that? Sharon Conti. He's in Buford. 1980. Let's look at the incorporation for this one. Hold on one second. I'm going to find out where this is at. See, it just goes on and on. It's like a fucking web, my friends, of which the Atlanta child murders was just a small sideshow to all this. Matter of fact, I think that's why they got together and let it get shut down on Wayne, okay? And just Wayne, because it was fucking up their business, okay? Yeah. That's up in what, Smyrna? Powers Ferry, Interchange, Cumberland. Yeah. All right. And then let's look at this. Chili's. All right. When you pull up this PDF document, sometimes, especially before 2000, there's a lot more information than just a little thing there. There's Paul Jordan. He's the incorporator back in 1980. I don't know what Jilly's was. Sounds to me it's like some kind of Western bar or something. So you read through this and it'll tell you. Sometimes it'll tell you what they're doing. Yeah, 100 Colony Square, right there. AJ Block, 19th floor, folks. Eugene's his buddy upstairs. You see, Gary Goldsmith. That name sounds familiar. Paul Jordan. You know, the FBI, they have these computers where they can take and they can list all the names, okay? And then they list the connections. Like they tag the connections and then they hit enter. And then it does like this little circle and it'll show you who has the most connections. And whoever has the most connections, that's the leader of the group. And that gives them a means to focus in on who's running shit. Okay, so that's it there. Um, let's see. Okay, 7 minutes. I'm keeping this up because I need to go back. Yeah, there's Jilly's. And you see all these Jillies? Lots of Jillies. Why do they have so many, though? See, who is this guy? Jilly's Licensing. This is T. Jack Black. 57. Is this the same thing, I wonder? It's 94. So I try to look at everything, and that way I have it in the back of my mind. Ah, Yeah, see, that's what Roswell Road and 285. Yeah, I know right where that's at. Yeah, I used to go to. There was about 24 years ago when I was in Atlanta. There was a Baja Fresh. I used to go right there, and I think there was a Trader Joe's also, because that's where I go. I want to live in any city. Any city you can find. If you find the Baja Fresh, if they still have those, or the Trader Joe's or Taco Bell, if you triangulate between those, that's where I'm going to be living at. It's not that hard to find me. All right. So we got that one. All right. So we got how much time left? Okay, 4 minutes. Oh, she's or the she. All right. I wanted to look at who owns she's and the Gold Club. All right. I'll have just enough time to do that. See, this is how I do research, folks. It's just right there in your face every day. She's SHES, or was it the she? No, I think it was she's. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot. It's gonna be way too much. All right, the Gold Club. That where the restaurant, yeah, where the restaurant is right now. Okay, excuse me, where the Trader Joe's is right now. That was where the Gold Club was. You see, 3384 Peachtree Road, Gold Club Buckhead, 340 East Paces Ferry Road. This may be a later incorporation of it. And I think that's going to be about it there. Yeah, we got about 1 minute and a half. Oh, come on, pop up. We're going to run out of time. Yeah, I got 1 minute. All right, that's it for now, folks. But you see how one thing connects to the next and the other? Oh, maybe it's coming up now. Um, but you find one thing and it goes to the next. So just to kind of highlight real quick, we've got Hirsch Friedman was working for the mob. Okay, he works for the FBI, gets blown up by the mob. He's running against Mary Welcome, who's working for Garland, who's working for the mob. They're running the She Club, the Gold Club, and all these other fucking real estate investment scams to launder money for drugs for the mob. All right, take care, folks. Bye bye.